So these are some strips that I did a while back in the Boro workshop, and they were basically, you know, similar to the strips that I just dyed. And what I did actually, which I don't have the originals right now, but what I did was I just kind of cut a little piece off the original strips so that after I dye this, I would still have the reference, of what I started with, which is a good idea. But, you know, I started to think that there might be a better and more productive way to do this. So as long as I have these, I figured I might as well, and I have an indigo vat going, which is, you know, the indigo is a quick take on dye, so I thought I would use it just to show you some ideas. I think what I'm going to do is, instead of cutting the strips off, I'm only going to dye part of these. Just as a different way to see the difference in what happens to the dye. I very often use the cylinder method to do this, or you can wrap it around a stick and just dip in this, or you can just hold on to it and dip slightly into the dye. But if you're not using indigo, it won't. The dye may not take that fast. So having it wrapped on something and having it sit in the dye bath partially submerged might work better, depending on, you know, what you're using. Now this is quite interesting, I think. What I did was just dip the bottom part of this in the indigo vat. And you can see now that I have the original color. Actually, I have these two together. This was the original color before. Walnut dye. This is the walnut dye. But I can see now how this blue dye has affected the other colors. I think it's a great learning tool. Plus, it gives me this kind of expanded rainbow. And of course, you know, you don't have to sew the strips together either. And this one is just really nice. So I did some where I just, you know, held a bunch of fabrics together and kind of dipped them in. And what I like here, actually, besides the learning of it and the understanding of how colors might mix, is that it starts to represent something that I've been thinking about, which is this change of color. Because I'm thinking that now I can get colors that may not really be related to lean into each other, because they have edges that are kind of dyed. Their root is kind of in the indigo vat, so they become like a family in some way. And I think that this might be a good way to be able to kind of blend. You know what I mean, right? And it doesn't have to be just blue. It can be any color or any dye that you can manage this situation with. So I think it's brought the element of change into the dye. Very nice, actually. So I thought, what if I did both sides and just kind of leave a strip down the middle of the original color? Then it becomes sort of like a lightning thing, and I can work with both edges of the cloth. I did a few separately as well. I had them stacked, you know, and when you do that, especially when they're wet, the dye penetrates funny, and I got this nice kind of mottled lightning bolts there. So these could be interesting too. Actually form some kind of pattern with the dark and light. And then of course I thought, what if I just dip the center and leave the sides light? So there's a lot that can be done here with this kind of soft edged transformation.